if anyone is listening to this and wants to win a reality show, when you are sincere, people love it. So you can be sincerely awful and people will still love you. When Simon Cowell started out, he was radically honest. Mel B is radically honest, and we like them because you know where you stand with them. They are sincerely themselves. Simon Cowell doesn't pretend to be someone else. Mel B, I worked with Mel for years, she is exactly the same on screen and off screen.
That is Maz Farrelly, who has spent 30 years behind the camera as a producer on some of the biggest shows in television history. Big Brother, X Factor, Celebrity Apprentice. Maz has sat across from more than 20,000 people, watching them audition, watching them perform, unravel, charm, and deceive their way through a room. Most of us think we're pretty good readers of other people. We trust our gut, we back our instincts. Maz totally disagrees. She knows what your clothes say about you before you sit down. She knows what your body language is giving away before you open your mouth. And she knows the exact moment the mask slips. But this isn't just about reading other people. Maz can tell you exactly how you are being read, how to walk into a pitch, a boardroom, even a job interview with a clear strategy, what to signal, what to dial up, and what you're probably doing right now that's working against you.
How much time do you spend at the end of that meeting strategizing about how you're going to make people do what you would like them to do? Because people don't. I find that fascinating. You have a strategy. When I talk, I say, hope is not a strategy. And most people hope it will happen. I say, a strategy is a strategy. Hope isn't one. I don't hope people will watch my TV shows. I don't hope people will book me for conferences. I do something about it. I make an effort to make them want to book me, which is just perfect sense, isn't it? And yet most people don't do it.
Maz walks in with a plan. She spent 30 years figuring out exactly what makes people compelling, credible, and impossible to ignore. And once you hear this, you will never leave that to chance again. This is the show that brings potential into everyday life. This is Performance Intelligence. Big recognisable TV shows that you've been the mastermind behind include Big Brother, The X Factor, Celebrity Apprentice, and you've literally sat opposite tens of thousands of people auditioning them to be on TV. Has there ever been someone you looked at thinking, absolutely not, this person is a dud, and then watched them become huge?
I've had people really surprise me. I haven't had that many people surprise me by winning, because if anyone is listening to this and wants to win a reality show, when you are sincere, people love it. So you can be sincerely awful and people will still love you. And I have seen people that I think...
So you can be sincerely awful, so you can be an A-grade asshole and be authentic about it and they still love you?
So when Simon Cowell started out, he was radically honest. Mel B is radically honest, and we like them because you know where you stand with them. They are sincerely themselves. Simon Cowell doesn't pretend to be someone else. Mel B, I worked with Mel for years, she is exactly the same on screen and off screen. Like, she just doesn't change. She's just got a camera on her. She's very, very honest. When she's cross and she'll tell you, and it's always very reasonable. Your team kept me waiting this morning. I say, okay. I was grumpy. You're going to hear that I was grumpy. And then I'll see the team, they go, oh, she was grumpy this morning. I'd say, were you early or late? And of course, everyone's looking at their feet. They go, I'm grumpy when you're late. You're grumpy when I'm late. Don't be late. It's disrespectful. She's really, she's great. We like people who are honest. We like people that we can read. Audiences are very sophisticated. They can tell when you're lying.
There's so much now about a brand and like, who are you as you step up? And there's so much bullshit and Teflon, saccharine feel around that. In researching you and talking to a couple of our mutual corporate speaking friends, and shout out to Andrew Klein.
Love Andrew
big
Klein.
Guy. Love you. When
I
had coffee with Andrew and another speaker, Michael McQueen, we call it the Triple Bs, the Bald Badger Brigade. We have a coffee every January and we set up the year with support each other. How was last year? What do you got for this year? And I said to Kleiny right at the end, who should I get out of everyone you've seen? And he's doing 30 plus events a year as MC and goes deep. Who should I get on the podcast? Maz. I said, why? He said, she has got an innate and uncanny ability to read people. Get her on the podcast and talk about that. So in researching you, fact check, 20,000 plus interviews where you've sat down with people to see whether they're going to be good talent for the audience.
Yeah, I mean,
is that number right?
It was an enormous number because I was in TV for 30 years. I know it's hard to believe when you look at me.
Oh, I said I think you must be in your early 30s.
Exactly. There was a small pause there. You should bring that forward, not leave that pause. I worked on loads of daily shows, so I interviewed an enormous number of people. And every celebrity, you interview them before the host interviews them because you want to find out about them. I did a lot of casting. So on shows like Big Brother, you could potentially meet, 2,000-3,000 people a year. You get to read people very easily. Now, we all do it. I don't have some super skill, but I have developed it more. So, that Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours and you're a genius at something. So I've done 30 years of it.
Which has been disputed, and Gladwell has actually come back. Yeah, because there's a guy named David Epstein who wrote a book called Range, and he talks about 10,000 hours is bullshit. And Epstein and Malcolm Gladwell have actually become friends. I'll get back to that. But Epstein looked at people like Andre Agassi, a lot of artists, a lot of other athletes, Roger Federer, who did lots of different sports. So they developed range at a young age and then specialised. Apparently Gladwell has come back since he's seen this and gone, hey, I'm happy to be corrected. He was saying you just go deep on one area. So I think the alteration on that, you need thousands of hours unless you're a freak. But that cross-pollination in different areas helps you have more range.
But when you get really, really, really good at one thing, it does inform other things, I think. Like if you're a good keynote speaker, so you can write, you can tell a story. So your depth might be keynote speaking, but all of the other bits of it, when you understand music and how music works, you can pick up
I call it
other
cross-training.
instruments.
So speaking, and you have to learn, but podcasting has made me a better author. Authoring has made me better at interviewing, has made me better at writing and so on.
Yeah, I think both probably. But everyone reads everyone all the time.
Yeah, but we often get it wrong. We do.
Oh, yeah, we do, which is brilliant. People, I was thinking about this yesterday, I don't know why, I was thinking about con artists and serial killers, and I was thinking how good they are at their jobs and how you have to train. Serial killers will have worked very hard at their craft. They're really convincing. They're able to convince you to do things you do not want to do. I did a lot of work with cops for a while, and really interestingly, they were saying that something like 99% of the women they'd spoken to who had been raped had said, I knew something wasn't quite right, but I ... got in the car, met him at his flat, went for a walk in the forest, whatever it was. And you think, of course, you should be able to do all of these things. And, the fault is not with them, of course. It's with the people who are hurting them. But they could read the situation. But we do it all the way through life, don't we? If you have kids, your kids are really good producers. Your kid doesn't say, I'll have a biscuit now, bitch. Your kid will say, Mummy, biscuit. Put their little head on the side. And you go, oh, you can have anything you want. Do you want a gun? Sure, whatever you want.
And it probably gave you a fundamental skill set to read a room. Princeton did some research on this in 2006, showing we form a trustworthiness impression in 100 milliseconds. It's like that. But you don't just develop fast instincts, you learn what to look for. So you're very humble. You're very, But you've got a superpower on this, and I want to channel in for our audience, because a lot of us don't read people well, or we make stuff up and go, God, how did I employ him or her?
We fill in blanks.
Yeah. What would you teach people? How do you teach people to understand others or to read the room? What do you look for?
There are very obvious clues. I did a sports show, and there were 3 execs, and one of the other execs, this fantastic guy, I loved him. And the first day we were shooting, we were, I think, at the MCG, and it was an AFL show, and this guy came in, and he was standing in front of us, and, this kid, and I said to him, so you are religious? And, Jesus is your best pal. And he said, yeah, how did you know that? And the guy sitting next to me was looking at me like,
who is this one?
You are a freak. And he said, yes, I am deeply religious, and I always have been, and I'm a Christian, and I help out at the local church. And he's looking at me like, oh, I cannot believe this. And when he left, he said, how did you know that? And I said, he was covered in tattoos of Jesus. Like, they're all over his arms. How could you not see them? He had crucifixes like every inch of his body. He said, I didn't notice. You just got to notice. I call it the ABCDE when I do talks and I do training with people. And one of the things I do is called the first minute. How you read someone in the first minute and how you're read in the first minute. The first thing I would notice about you is what you're wearing. We notice clothes, and your clothes will say nicely turned out, they've made an effort, they haven't made an effort, expensive, cheap. Your clothes tell a story, creative, not creative. Everyone tells a story with their clothes. Trump tells a story with his clothes. Very smart. Steve Jobs, I just wear this black polo neck.
Like polo jeans and white shoes. Yeah.
And it's Issey Miyake. It's very cleverly thought out. Mark Zuckerberg, why does he wear a hoodie? So why does Mark Zuckerberg wear a hoodie? Because he doesn't want you to think that Meta is sinister. He's just the guy in the hoodie. If he was wearing a really sharp suit, none of us would be on Facebook, because we think, you're taking our data. But you look at him and you think, oh, you're just about to go to summer camp and help the children learn to play football. It's very clever. So the first thing we notice is A, your attire. And we do. We read each other's clothes. B is your body language. How do people move? How do they shake hands with you? How do they look at you? Same show, this guy walked in and he stood and he looked down his nose at me like, what the hell are you doing here? And I love people like that. The first question, he was just standing staring me down. And I said, when was the last time you had an argument with someone? And he said, wow, last night. I had a blue with my housemate. I was sitting in the kitchen. He was standing outside smoking. And, smoke was coming in. I just went out and I gave it to him. And the guy sitting next to me again was like, oh my God, you're a genius. And I said, look at his body language. He was so angry, like properly sexy, but also really angry. And did you not feel that? He said, oh yeah, I guess. And he was looking down his nose at me like, what are you doing here?
Properly sexy physically or properly sexy because he had a bit of attitude with the anger?
Both. He was kind of the Robbie Williams, but an angry Robbie Williams. So guys would want to go for a beer with him and chicks would want to date him. He was just that kind of guy. But yeah, you could read it, but he wasn't looking. No, I'm looking. C is your conversation, your content. What do you say? And people will often say stuff that's completely incongruent with their body language, and you can feel it. You can feel it isn't real. And people leak. On Big Brother, we call it leakage. You can pretend to be someone for the first week, and then you can't, and that's when it starts to warm up and get more interesting. D is your delivery. Are you friendly? How do you deliver your information? Is it clear? Are you honest? And we can read when people are lying. We just need to pay a bit more attention to it. Like people will walk into castings and they'll curl themselves up in a ball in front of me and they'll say, I'm the life and soul of the party. You go, no, I don't think you are, and that's fine, because I don't need 12 jazz hands people, because that would become very tedious. And if you're calm and gentle and reserved, that's also beautiful. There's a place for that on this show. So we can tell with people's delivery. And E is entertaining. Are you entertaining? Very charismatic people get their way. And very charismatic people make great CEOs and great leaders and great serial killers and great con artists and great cult leaders, because you want to follow them. There are people that are magnetic and you just want to be in their light.
When you were saying before about con artists and criminals, I thought we haven't had one of those on the show.
Well, you don't know.
Yeah, yet. Frank Abagnale, Catch Me If You Can. Did you watch that movie?
Yeah.
Unbelievable, wasn't it? So he masqueraded as a pilot, as a doctor.
Too easy.
And then in a law firm.
Super easy. One of my favourite people I ever cast was a guy, it was Big Brother here in Australia. And he was really beautifully turned out and he had this clipped British accent. And he was talking about himself. And then he said, I said, where do you live? And he said, okay, so this would be something of a surprise for you. I live in a car. I said, oh, okay. Talk to me about that. He said, yeah, I don't have a home. He said, I live in a car park of a nightclub. I said, right, okay. How's that work? And he said, well, essentially, I just, lie to people. I said, all right, okay. Wow. He was fascinating. He took us in one direction, and then he just completely pulled the rug from under our feet, which I really like. I like people who are surprising. Humans love surprises. We love surprises for our rat presents. He was so interesting, Andrew. You would have loved him. He wanted to be in the house because he knew that it would do him good, and he'd get a job, and he'd get the chicks, and he'd get whatever he wanted. And he said to me, so what do you think? And I said, I'm borderline with you, because I think you're telling me exactly what you think I want to hear, which is great, because you should play me. You want something, you should produce me to give you what you want, because that's life, isn't it? Your child doesn't say, give me a biscuit, bitch. Your child produces you and says, Mummy, I'd love a biscuit. You're the most beautiful mummy in the world. And you of course you can have the biscuit. So everyone produces, we produce each other all the time. And, it's fine. He was producing me. And I said, okay, so you can ask me one question to really understand me. And if it's an interesting question, then you're through to the next round. And if it's a dull one, you're not. So think it through. Don't ask me, are you happy? Do you love your job? And he thought for about 3 seconds, and he said this, just love him. If someone hurt someone in your family and you could kill them and get away with it, would you do that?
He's in, right? Straight through.
Yeah, and I said, right, okay, well, you're through to the next round. And he just started laughing. He was walking away, he got to the door, and he turned back and he said, would you? And I said, what do you think? And he said, oh, you'd kill him. And then walked out. What an interesting soul. Yeah. What a complicated, unique, really interesting person. He thought for 3 seconds, give me a question that you think is interesting that will get to the core of me.
He's authentic. And
he suddenly said, if you could kill someone and get away with it, would you do it? I mean, what an interesting question.
How did he go?
Oh, he was an intruder. So you put intruders in when you need to spice the house up. So it's a little bit like your meal's a bit boring and you put a bit chilli in and suddenly you go, oh, wow, this is incredible. He was the chilli. So he went in and he did exactly what we wanted him to do, which is shake the house up. And then he was voted straight out again because he was too much for everyone. But he'd done the job we wanted him to do very kindly without, making any effort at all.
Did he get the job, get the girls after? Oh,
I'm sure he did. I mean, he is probably running a small country now somewhere. I'll be watching the G8 or the G9 or the G24. I think that's that guy from Big Brother in the background. He was very clever at reading the room. Very successful people are, when you say read the room, reading people and understanding them. And everyone can do it. Most people can't be bothered doing it.
Well, you're giving us a manuscript, A for attire, B body language, C for conversation and the content, D for delivery, E for entertaining, so charismatic, F.
Friendly. Are you friendly? We like people who smile. People who smile earn more. Yeah. You meet, when people, back in 20, 30 years ago, and you go to the States and people would say, they give you your coffee and say, have a nice day. And it became that, have a nice day. And people would go, isn't it annoying? And I'd rather someone said, have a nice day, than here's your coffee, fatty, now bugger off, Wouldn't you?
Give of course you would. Money in your language. Give us your money, bitch.
I want a tip and then leave. Really smart. And really smart people will get you to change your behaviour without you even knowing you're doing it. And there's a very famous story, I'm sure everyone's heard this, of a restaurant, a coffee shop in New York. And it was when Clinton and Trump were up against each other. And they had 2 tip jars. One said Trump, one said Clinton. You can't not tip. You look in the one that's Trump and you see a load of money in there and you think, I'm going to put a load of money in the Clinton one. I can't, no, you've got, how clever. So really smart people produce other people to do what they would like them to do. And we do it with each other all the time. And when you take your time to pay attention to what you're doing and you change your behaviour, you can change their behaviour. Very few people I speak to, and I do a lot of training with people, corporates, and I do a lot of talks. And I say, when you have a meeting, it's a strategy meeting, how much time do you spend at the end of that meeting strategizing about how you're going to make people do what you would like them to do? because people don't. I find that fascinating. You have a strategy. When I talk, I say hope is not a strategy. And most people hope it will happen. I say a strategy is a strategy. Hope isn't one. I don't hope people will watch my TV shows. I don't hope people will book me for conferences. I do something about it. I make an effort to make them want to book me, which is just perfect sense, isn't it? And yet most people don't do it.
You're very considered, you're poignant, educated, mindful. You have a calmness around you. But there's a laser beam focus. I can feel that. So when you meet someone, when you're interviewing, do you just run that filter? A, B, C, D, E, F?
We do it.
Have you trained it consciously?
Yeah, it was my job. So my job was to read those people as they were walking into the room. And I would start writing before they had hit their mark. So we'd have a mark on the floor that you stood on. So, you were in good light and we could film you. And there's a microphone in front of you. Before they had settled, I started writing. Now, we can all do it. If you walk into a room and two of your best friends have had a row, you can feel it. Now, you weren't in the room, so you don't know they've had that. And they'll be smiling at you, but there is residual anger in the room and you can feel it. And I think that we don't trust our feelings enough. I'll tell you a very quick story about feeling, because feeling is considered weak, I think, a sort of weakness, but it's all of your senses wrapped up in a sense that we don't have a word for. I mean, we call it intuition or feeling or the sixth sense. We don't even have a name for it.
Which people who've got impaired vision, or blind, have it much more than other people.
Yeah. You develop a skill set, and I think if you have someone very clever in your life who points out whatever has happened to you, the benefit of it, like being sight impaired. Apparently, the story goes, Stevie Wonder's teacher recognised that he was a very, very smart kid and celebrated the fact that he couldn't see, but his hearing was incredible. And there was either a mouse in the classroom or she pretended there was, and she said, let's get Stevie to find the mouse because Stevie's hearing is so much better. He's so gifted. And suddenly he thought, I'm really gifted. Wow, I might not be able to do that, but I'm incredible at this. And I think when you have somebody in your life that does that for you, you recognise something amazing about yourself and we're so used to ourselves, we don't know. It's very interesting when people describe you and you hear yourself being described and you think, oh, I didn't really think I was like that. But it's really interesting. I can't remember what the question was because I started to swim in a world of my own, a lake of me.
We'll come back, but just on that with Stevie Wonder, who was that person for you, the teacher with the mouse? Who totally backed you? And then what we were talking about was how you train this or how you've got really good at
I had a really great, I had a lot of really great bosses. There were some awful bosses. I had some really incredible ones. And there was a guy called Sebastian Scott in London on a show called The Big Breakfast. And I think he recognised that I wasn't an absolute idiot. And we would have meetings. It was a very intimidating room. Really, there was the creme de la creme of television, and the show was number one. And you were sitting in a room of incredibly talented people. And I knew that my ideas were good, but I hated pitching. I just didn't like it, or speaking in public. The irony, it's now my job. And I used to give Sebastian a list of ideas at the end of the meeting. I'd hand him a list of ideas and I'd say, these are my ideas for the week. And he'd go, these are brilliant, we'll do them all. And then one week he said to me, you've got to pitch these. And I said, I don't really like talking in public terribly much, not my thing. And he said, okay, then don't be a producer, go home. I said, no, I want to be a producer. He said, then talk in public. I said, but I don't really like it. He said, then go home. I went, okay, I'm going to have to, aren't I? And he said, yeah, it's your job. And I pitched the ideas and I went, yeah, great ideas, yeah, we'll do them. And it was just a tiny moment. And as I was pitching and people were laughing and, he was looking at me like, yeah, it's okay. And he said to me afterwards, not every idea is going to be brilliant. That's just a fact. Some of them won't work. That's all right. And I think we don't build failure into work nearly enough. I heard this great podcast, Adam Morgan, Let's Make This More Interesting. with a lady called Lucinda who works for Uber. I think she might be head of marketing in the world, the universe. And they were talking about fear. And he said sometimes in meetings, he has a seat at the table that is called fear. And say, we're afraid, and that is that seat. So we're all sitting around the table, and that seat is fear, and it's in the room, and it's real, and it's fine. Because we're all afraid that this might not work. And that's okay, because we should be. Not everything works. And I love the idea of having something physical in the room. And I used to say to my team...
So does he name the seat? Does he put
fear.
people in the seat?
No, it's an empty seat called fear that is at the table. And he said, that is the seat that we're all afraid, these things won't work. And not everything will. And I used to have bosses who say, this has got to work, this show's got to work. And I said, well, no one's going to try harder, but I can't guarantee it because it's very complicated making a TV show. Very few work. If you think about it, Andrew, how many shows go to a second series? How many new shows go to a second series? Very, very few.
I've had a bit of experience doing some observation documentaries and even pitching a few shows a couple of years ago. The amount of work that goes through to go and get through a producer or an EP and then to go with a network or a production company. But you've had success after success after success. So come back to the humbleness you have. There's an ingredient there somewhere, somehow. You've cracked it.
I love my audience and I sweat. So I created a few cooking shows, and I used to go to shopping centres and sit outside of supermarkets just for hours on end and watch people walking out. And I think, what do you want? What do you want? What can I create that's going to make your life better? That is going to be funny and clever and watchable and sellable and will make a difference to your life. And I sweat the audience. If I'm having a meeting, I do everything I can to make it interesting and to make it a really lovely meeting. And I think people invite you to a meeting and make no effort at all. I find that fascinating.
I can imagine you sitting out opposite Woolworths or Sainsbury's or Tesco's. Security, please, to level 3 at the front of Tesco's supermarket. She's here again, staring at the audience.
Just absolutely staring at people, drinking coffee all day. Yeah, I absolutely would. But I think we very often think about what we want to make or say or do, and we don't really think about the recipient. And I sweat that, I think.
So your lens is being in other people's shoes.
Yeah, so I made Big Brother and then 3 months later created Q&A. I'm one of the co-creators of Q&A. And then I went back to Big Brother. And friends of mine would say, how do you do that? Like, how can you make that and then make this and then go back to that? You say, because it's not about what I want, it's about what the audience wants. So I'm not thinking about what I want to do. I'm thinking about what you want to watch, and what will help you and what will engage you and what will keep everyone who works on the show employed for 10 years. And I really sweat that. I liked that a show like Big Brother can employ 2,000 people. And if you don't mess it up...
2,000? Huge
number of people. Yeah, by the time you've done audience and legal and marketing and promos and there's an enormous number of people working on it at any given time. And if you don't mess that show up, they will have a job next year and the next year. And the next year...
Is it Big Brother UK or Big Brother Australia or both?
I did both, yeah. So I would like to apologise for both nations. I did both, yeah.
But then to go from Big Brother to Q&A, very different format, very different audience.
Yeah.
Same principles, you're watching the audience.
Same principle. So it's Malcolm Gladwell and the other guy you mentioned. So range, if you understand cooking... You can probably make French food and Vietnamese food and probably a bit of Thai, and you might not be a genius at all of them, but you're able to do them because you understand food. I understand content and I understand human behaviour. And I do a lot of work with companies around human behaviour and how to change human behaviour. And people say, I don't have much of a budget. And I tell them this story of a cop friend of mine, Mark Bradley in the UK, who's a beautiful artist and very gentle. Trained at Scotland Yard, trained at Quantico, like really hardcore, wore cardigans and, just so incongruous. Like this just sort of doesn't work, which is brilliant, isn't it? And he was telling me this brilliant story that I talk about when I talk about human behaviour. And he said there was a crook in his area and he just couldn't nail him for anything. He said, but I knew he was doing it. He said, we all knew, but he was smarter than us. He was really, really good at his craft. He was a brilliant crook. He was just really good at it. He'd been doing 10,000 hours. He'd put the hours in. He was good at it. And he said, I wanted to change his behaviour, but I didn't really know what I could do. And he said, we don't have budgets. So he said, we sat around and we said, how can we stop this guy from committing crimes? Because we can't nail him. So we're going to have to get upstream of the problem and stop him from committing crimes. And he says they all sat around and back in the old days, they'd had a few beers and they decided this, that on his birthday and on Valentine's Day and on Christmas Day and Easter, and when they went on holidays, they'd sent him cards, all of them, saying, thinking of you, always.
On Valentine's Day?
They sent him a Valentine's
Christmas
card.
And his birthday, so 4
all
times
of them.
a year.
Postcards when they went on holiday. Just to let you know, you're always on our mind. Just to let you know, we're thinking about you. And they said the crime really stopped. He was so freaked out that he was getting these cards from cops through through his letterbox constantly. How clever. Cost them how much? $15. And they changed his behaviour. Because hope is not strategy. They sat down, they strategized, and they thought, how do we change this person's behaviour? And it doesn't cost a lot of money to be clever. It just costs a bit of time and a bit of thinking. And they had the time and they thought really hard. You can change people's behaviour if you would like them to. And you can do it very gently and very softly without them really noticing. And that's where genius lies, I think. And it's not manipulation. It's just really clever strategy.
And it's also slowing down to have that time to think and be strategic. We're so busy, aren't we? Like in the corporate world that we both
all
occupy.
Have the time.
It's conference after conference after conference and timeline, and there's no or very little pause to reflect and slow down and to think. And I've tried to build a 5 centimetre margin into my life, and it really aligns with what you're saying. Yeah, go busy. So our audience, we've got a lot of high performers, athletes, entrepreneurs, business people, defence, aspiring entrepreneurs or just human performance, addicts or aficionados, but slow down and think. And that becomes really obvious talking to you.
Yeah, slow down. And the other thing I think we've forgotten a little bit is, trying to sound like Mother Teresa, is to be kind. And I think Facebook, the like button, really changed the world. You could be happy or angry with someone instantly. And you wouldn't write, this has made me angry. But that little thumb down was an indicator. And I think that's changed us ever so slightly. So in TV, when I worked in TV, my team would say, Andrew did this. I say, okay, now I'm not terribly interested in what Andrew did, but I'm very interested in why he did that. So the story is not Andrew did this, because anyone can see that that's happened. We've got to be cleverer than that, and we've got to explain why Andrew did what he did. So I'd say to my team, what's the motivation? What's the motivation? And when you understand the motivation, you get much less cross with people. And you become much kinder and more considered, because you think, I don't know what's happened in your life. If you're beeping me at the traffic lights, it could be that your pregnant partner is about to give birth. Now, I think you're just being an idiot, but, your partner's been unwell and you're worried about getting to the hospital. I don't know your backstory, and it's not personal. Just don't take things personally. It's very, very rarely about you. If you didn't get the job, it's probably because someone wanted to give it to their nephew or their niece or whatever. So I think not taking things personally and just thinking about people's motivations. It's very rare that anyone is out to get you. It's very unusual for that to ever happen in your life. But I think we do the thumbs up, thumbs down, cancel very quickly. I'd like us to take our time.
We've missed
and then cancel them.
It's good or bad, but it's not. Life's not just either amazing or shit. It's this in-between messiness.
Yeah. Some days I'm lovely. Some days I'm not. I'm the same person. It's just, it's life, isn't it? You sleep well, you don't sleep well, you've had too much coffee, you haven't, you're hungry, you're not, Yeah,
and I want to talk to you about authenticity, but I've got to close out a question that makes me feel anxious. But if I don't do it, I know I'll listen back to this, Maz, and I'll go, oh. So on the attire, body language, conversation, delivery, entertainment factor and friendliness, what filter did you run on me when we first met? And my heart rate's just gone up 20 beats a minute asking that question.
In real life?
Yeah. Because we met, so for context, we met in virtual life. And then, so when you ran the filter today, what did you think?
So I could only see your top half. I thought you moved very confidently. So I thought you are someone who is very in tune with their body. And obviously you look like you look after yourself, unless you're very, genetically blessed and you eat kettle chips all day.
Plastic surgeon, good surgeon.
Give me the number. You moved very confidently. Your clothes are very tidy. They fit you properly. You've thought about it. You're very groomed. You have made an effort. I suspect you make an effort every day. I don't think this is unusual for you. Yeah, so I thought that you were confident but not overbearing. I imagine that you've had times when you haven't been confident, and I know little bits about you, but obviously we're not pals. We met today for the first time. So I'd say your friends would love you. I would say you're a very loyal friend. I would say that it would be difficult to say anything bad about you, and that your friends wouldn't. I suspect you hold on to people for a long time, and that when you are friends with them, you stay friends. I suspect that you put yourself out an awful lot more than other people would to look after the people you love. And I think you'd probably be quite easy at telling them you love them. I think you'd probably feel a bit uncomfortable about doing it, but do it. And lots of people don't. I make a point of saying to my friends, I love you, I adore you, I'm so pleased we're friends, and please never bin me because you're a very big part of my life. But I don't think we say it nearly enough to each other. And I suspect that probably, maybe in the last 5 or 10 years, you've started to say it more. I think probably you might have been a bit reserved before that.
God, you're good. This is like a therapy session.
And I'm completely wrong about all of it.
No, you've nailed it. Wiz, thoughts?
I don't know if you ever saw the show Sherlock, where he comes into a room and just reads someone like that.
Yeah.
Funny. But you know what, we all do
so
it.
I felt nervous asking that question, but it wouldn't be authentic. You may have gone, oh, you dress like a twat. You walk like a prima donna.
No, you move very confident. You move like someone who has done sports or dance. Dancers move very differently. They're very in control of their bodies.
Physically, I now teach this when you're teaching an athlete, mental skills or any performer, to perform under pressure when it matters most. Some people are feet up, some are heads down. We try and get heart-centered so then you can change the aperture up and down. I can articulate that really clearly now. If you asked me 5 or 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to articulate it. The bit that got me then, as you said, maybe you weren't like that 10 years ago. I wasn't. So I went through a marriage breakdown at 40 from an Irish Catholic background. I had a really external lens, a very big performance-based identity. It was a little bit like Mulga Bill's bicycle, and a very small wheel at the back, which was a purpose-based identity. And it was extraneous, external. It was all about being liked, loved, getting accolades from other people. Then you go through a marriage breakdown and go, fuck, what is it about?
Yeah, who am I?
Who am I? So,
yeah, because your headline goes, you're not a husband or a dad. I mean, you're still a dad, but you're a different kind of dad. And your headline goes, and you've got to rewrite that. And you think, who am I now? That's hard. It was hard to do at any time in life, in any way. It's very hard.
You're very good. I felt exposed then. At the same time, I felt a bit of a breath going, I've spent a lot of time the last 10 years really trying to connect on a different level with friends. And some of my friends
I would imagine
laugh
that.
and say, it can still be a pain in the ass. But I am much more conscious of keeping relationships going and putting time into it. And when we get sidetracked,
you'd be a very good friend, I think. I don't think, this is a saying in Ireland, you probably heard it, if they couldn't do you a good turn, they'd never do you a bad one. I don't think it's in you to do someone a bad turn. I think you'd like to. I think you think, I'm going to get you, sucker.
I'm an arsehole
but
if I'm
I don't think you would.
Yeah. Authenticity. We hear so much about it. And I think on social media and with the young punks now, we've overdone it. Oh, let's all be authentic. I'm going to be authentic with you, Maz. And
I can't bear that word.
It's positioned, or the word that rubs me up the wrong way. I had a partner at a consulting firm. I'll be very generic in the way I do this. I used to
It's
work
like me
at
with
one.
celebrities.
Yeah. So this person who's got a bit of a profile and did some stuff. So this lead partner, got me in to look at him speaking because he said, look, Maisie, I've seen you speak. I like the way that you can entertain a crowd a bit different to the normal person in a consulting or accounting firm. Can you come and watch me and give me some coaching and feedback? I said, look, great, would love to. Yeah, I think I can do a bit of work with you, but I need to see you in the wild. Let me know when you're doing a presentation, give me approval to come and watch that. I'll sit up the back. Don't introduce me. Just let me blend in. And he stands up the front. It was at an offsite and said, ladies and gentlemen, I now want to be vulnerable with you. And I'm at the back going, no, fuck. No, you don't say, let me be vulnerable with you. Be vulnerable. Be authentic. So my question, what is authenticity? Because I think we're so confused about what it is and how to be it.
It's one of my real big bugbear. The moment anyone or any company say they're authentic, I think they're lying. It's like when people say to me, I'll be honest with you. And I always say to them, right, 2 minutes ago, were you lying? And they go, well, no. I said, then why are you telling me you'll be honest with me now? I don't understand, because I'm a very simple soul. I think if you're telling me you're authentic, you're not. It's like if you read a dating website profile and it says GOSH, great sense of humour. And I always think, completely you don't have one, because if you did you wouldn't say you had one. I have a great sense of humour.
I'm amazing in bed. Do people say that on dating profiles these days?
Absolutely astounding in bed. And you think, I don't know, if you've got to say it, I think you probably are not. I think being authentic, I just hate it. Be yourself. Oscar Wilde says, be yourself, everyone else is taken. Now that's it. Be kind, be nice, be generous. At work, I used to say to people, just be a sweetheart. Be a sweetheart to deal with. Whatever it takes to be a sweetheart, be that. Be easy to do business with. Be kind and nice and lovely. Don't lie. Don't pretend to be someone you're not, because you can't. It doesn't last. And by the way, you'll be a much better version of you. Lots of people, there was a time where lots of people were trying to be Mel B. You say, I'll just book Mel B. I'm not going to book Mel B light, am I? I'm going to book her if I want that. Simon Cowell, everyone tried to be Simon Cowell for a while. You think, you're just going to book Simon Cowell. I'm not going to book you trying to be Simon Cowell. I'll book Simon Cowell. So I think be yourself. Yeah, be a sweetheart. Be kind and nice and generous and supportive. And if you're a leader, your job is to love the problem people, not the people who are really easy. It's easy to love the people who are easy. It's very difficult to love the people who aren't. Love bomb them. And I would say to my teams, if you're not doing a great job, either I haven't given you the tools or the time, or I've put you in the wrong job. And the fault is with me. So if you are struggling, come and have a chat and we'll change your job, or I'll help you. And maybe I've put you in the wrong job. But, I don't want you to struggle. I want you to do really well. I could always tell when someone was really good at their job when they walked into my office and said, right, we're in trouble. And now I would start laughing. I go, how much trouble? So front page, questions in Parliament, or just a mention on the radio tomorrow. And they say, questions in Parliament. I go, okay, take a seat. And sometimes it was just, we'll be on the radio. I go, okay, don't sit down. What is it? Okay, we can deal with that. It's fine. So there were degrees of awfulness. But I could always tell when people were really good at their job, because they could come in and tell me they'd messed up. When you're not that confident, you try and hide the bad bits. Bad bits are going to happen. Of course they are. I liked people who would come in and be really honest and say, what have you got planned for tomorrow? And they'd say, I was just going to, catch up on some stuff. And they go, no, you're going to be doing the news all day because we really messed up. Okay, that's fine. I like people who are very honest. I think probably authentic equals honest, that you are honest. And companies say they're authentic all the time. And I say to them, give me 3 examples of your authenticity. And they can't give me one. I say, well, if you're not authentic, that's fine. You don't have to be. But you can't say you are if you're not. Because your audience will say what I say, which is, give me 3 examples, and you won't be able to.
There'll be some people listening to this who'll feel a bit nervous, and I would have listened to this 15 plus years ago. Because if you're insecure or you haven't really formed that identity of what you're good at and confidence, So confidence is...
By the way, it never happens. Like, you never... the moment you think you're brilliant at something, you know, you turn into an arse. And I think we're constantly... Yeah. Simon Cowell used to say, the moment you think you've cracked a show, the show will die. Now, I completely agree with that. People go, oh, it's number one. I say, this season...
You can have a level of mastery without being a master. And I agree. Because if you get to that arrogance...
The moment I realised I was really great at making television was the moment I realised I knew nothing. And the confidence that comes with knowing that you know nothing, that you think you know. I think I know what audiences want, and I think we're doing the right thing. That's what I would say to everyone. I've got no idea. I think the show will work, but I don't know.
I think that the question, the ability to say that I don't know, or I think I don't know.
That's when you know you're good at something.
So people like me...
It feels like the opposite, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You feel like you want someone to say, this completely will work.
Well, 15 years ago, maybe this is more of a male thing, but to then acknowledge that you don't know, shit, everyone's going to judge me. So I...
By the way, people are always judging you.
True. Well, then ABCDEF, I realised at the moment I met you, Maz. But we sometimes overshoot, or I've done, to say, oh, no, this is going to go well. Here's what I learnt when I started doing a lot more work in corporate, you know, going in as a partner at a consulting firm, to run at what's potentially going to go wrong. That was a huge shift for me, to go, hey, here's what might stuff up or fuck up, this. Whereas what I used to do is go, and hey, we've lost this account, Maz, but hey, we've got 3 others going. There's this bank vertical, we've got this one in a transport vertical, and then I know people in the room are just going, hey, mate, just stop bullshitting. And I wasn't doing it to bullshit. I was doing it as an overt optimist and
to comfort them, and to think you're being kind, to go, I've got bad news for you, but...
To comfort me, because I think, first of all, that insecurity we then elevate, and then in so doing, other people think you're not authentic or full of shit. That took me a while to learn that.
Being honest is great. I used to sit in meetings where I had, I think I said earlier, I had some lovely bosses and some who weren't so fabulous, not because they wanted to be bad bosses, but because they had been through experiences that framed them in a certain way. And we were sitting in a meeting, and someone was saying, so Robbie Williams is going to host the show. Now, I knew that Robbie Williams wasn't going to, because we'd already had a no. And I was kind of looking, like, and we left the meeting, and they said, why did you say that? So, well, they wanted to hear it. I said, but it's not true. They only want to hear it if it's true. It's not true. Like, he's not going to host the show. Yeah. Well, they will find that out. And I said, well, why don't we go back in? They can find that out right now. And then we can go and look for someone else, because I think it's going to be enormously disappointing for them when in a month's time or 2 months' time we say, by the way, Robbie isn't doing it. Why don't we just be honest now and say he's not going to do it? Here are 3 people we think are extraordinary. They're not as good as him, but he's doing nothing at the moment. And he has very publicly said, I'm not going to work for a year. Everyone knows. Why did we lie to them? Next time you go into that meeting, they're not going to trust you. So I was honest, and I'd say to people, we promised you this, we can't deliver it, and this is the reason why, and I don't think anyone can deliver this, and if they can, then I apologise enormously that we didn't, but I think in the future we'll look back and they go, oh yeah, of course they weren't going to do this, of course not. So I tried to be very honest with people, and I still do try to be very honest with people. People will ask me something, I'm very honest with them. Do you think you can do this? And say, well, I'll die trying, and I will give it my best, but I can't guarantee anything, because humans are humans. We are the only animal on earth that eats stuff that kills us. You don't see birds eating tires, and we are ruining our environment. You don't see birds smashing up their nests. We are extraordinarily complicated, complex, bonkers creatures. And that's great. But we can never speak with any confidence about anything ever being sure. In TV, the moment when someone was pitching, if they said, this will definitely work, that was the moment I knew they didn't know the industry. When people would come in and say, I think this will work. Look, we've thought about the 8 things that really matter, and we've been, we go through them, and yes, they tick every box. But of course, audiences are fickle, but it does tick every box to work. And I think, yeah, you know the industry.
One question in my mind circling, maybe around an incongruence in something we spoke about before, you said be a sweetheart. So the guy from Big Brother, you said, was openly owned it as an arsehole. He was rugged, a bit edgy, and you said men and women, guys wanted to be mates with him, women wanted to make love with him. How does that fit on your authenticity view about being, is that just being radically authentic to own who you are?
He didn't come in and pretend to try and charm me. He had no interest in that. He looked at me. He was absolutely, what you saw was what you got. He absolutely looked down his nose at me like, what on earth are you doing here on a sports show? And I think I said to him, you know, I don't know much about sport, but I know an enormous amount about telly. Now, I've just made 600 cooking shows. I can't cook. I know very little about politics, you know, but I'm really good at making telly. So you're in pretty safe hands. Like, we're pretty okay here. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at, and I'm honest about it. I'm not going to do your budgeting, and I'm not going to do your scheduling, but you'll never beat me at ideas. I'm really good at ideas. I'm very creative in my thinking. There are an enormous number of things I can't do. You know, I can't cook. I'm a terrible girlfriend. Can't do my tax, but I'm very creative.
This is not on your dating profile?
Yes, it is. There might be a reason I'm single. Should we go through it after this? Do you mind if I ask for some tips?
I might give you a bit of feedback. Just get rid of that bit about terrible girlfriend. Amplify that piece. Wonderful girlfriend. Wonderful partner.
Wonderful partner. Inauthentic.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
I know. But wouldn't it be great if you did write that on a dating profile?
Anything on your dating profile that might increase the likelihood of you meeting an eligible suitor, and then you could rearrange.
But they're not going to be eligible, are they? Because if they want, you know, sausages and I'm vegan, they're going to find that out really quickly. So what's the point?
Unless you meet someone who is a fixer. Because if you go terrible girlfriend, a fixer's going to love that, right? Yeah, I'll make her a great girlfriend. She's a project.
Yeah. Do we want to be fixed? I know that's a complicated one, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. But then love is such a weird thing, isn't it? That you will go to a party. So I think love is like casting. That you'll go to a party and you'll meet in a really incredibly attractive, funny, clever, smart, intriguing people, but there'll be someone else there that just interests you so much, and they're probably not the most beautiful, clever, articulate, funny raconteur, but there'll be something about them that your sixth sense says, oh my goodness, it's you. And you think about how many of your friends are with partners you would never have chosen for them. I mean, 99% of my friends who are very happily with people.
But often the ones that work, when you choose a carbon copy of yourself, they're a pain in the ass.
I know,
I'm dating me, Jesus.
I know, I can't think of anything worse than dating me.
Unless you're narcissistic. Right?
Yeah, but then, I mean, love is like casting. You'll finish the day and there will be people who've stuck in your minds, not the funniest, the cleverest, the most attractive, the most articulate, but there's something about them that you think, oh, wow, yeah. And everyone in the room thinks the same thing. I mean, there'll be a few. There was one show I cast, and this girl came in, and it was a room full of guys and me. And she said, in the process of the conversation, she was very pretty. Very pale skin. She had red hair. She looked like she just walked out of a field collecting eggs and, you know, daisies. She was gorgeous. And she said, I am married. I'm in an open relationship. I have a girlfriend. So everyone's paying attention. And then she said, I'm a contortionist. And at that point, I could feel everyone in the room just shift gear into high alert. And she left the room and everyone said, well, she's a definite, isn't she? And I said, could you just take a moment? If she was on the radio and she hadn't told you that, would you put her on television? If you couldn't see her and she hadn't told you the backstory and they said no, I said, no, you calm down. So, yeah, some people walk into
Barnyard Angel walks in an open relationship with a girlfriend.
With
and
a girl. So she's a bisexual contortionist who is very attractive. And they were all out of their sweet minds. And this is 23 years ago, I can still remember her.
So did she get in or not?
No. I mean, but, you know, congratulations on having the best story, the best Netflix ad of anyone who walked in the door.
Did you smell bullshit?
No, she meant it all. But she wouldn't have been interesting to watch on television. You know, she would have gotten into an Uber Eats box, you know, and back out again. And then when that trick's done, you go, what's next?
Few questions I'd like to ask, but we might move on.
45 questions I have for you, Maz, none of them to do with the podcast.
There might be some people listening to this going, yeah,
do I still have her number? No.
We've moved on from the fair-skinned, ginger
daisy-carrying contortionist.
Bisexual contortionist. What
a headline.
This might be the byline for this podcast, Maz. Who knows?
Why
Shannon
not?
may pick it up and just love it. You're making me giggle. For people who are listening to this going, I just don't know how to be authentic because I've spent so long trying to be someone that I think I need to be or I've been put in a box. How would you coach that person? How would you guide them to even understand who they are?
Ask the people around you. So ask people you trust and say, a very good way of getting the truth from people is to ask them the positive, then the negative. If you ask people negatives, they won't give them to you because they don't want to be negative. If you say, I want to ask you a few questions, are you okay with that? If you were describing me in one sentence, what do you think I'm really good at? And then people would tell you wonderful things. And they feel okay telling you wonderful things because you feel good and they feel good and everyone feels good. And then if you say to them, tell me how you think I could improve. I want to be better. Now, I'm only going to get better if I hear stuff that's really constructive and bad, and I'm okay to hear it. So you give people permission. How could I, if you were my mentor or you wanted me to be more successful, what could you tell me that I could improve on? What could I do a little bit better that might make me more successful? And you have my absolute permission to tell me. We only get better when we hear the bad stuff. You learn more from your failures than your successes. And in TV, we would, joke about it and say, when we're number one, all we do is we sit around and we go, well, obviously we're number one because we're geniuses. That's why we're number one. It's because I'm the cleverest person in the world. And you all sit back and you go, aren't we wonderful? And then when you make a show that doesn't work, you forensically examine it. And it's on the dissecting table for a long time. And that's where you learn. You go, we did this and it didn't work, and we did this and it didn't work, we did this and it didn't work. And that's where the smart money is. When you know what isn't working, that's where it's beautiful. When you have a meeting, just a very quick moment where you think, what could I have done better? And I'm not really one for much in the way of self-analysis, but when I do talks, I do analyse it and I pay attention. So when I speak at conferences, I always arrive a bit early and I don't really watch the person on stage, but I watch the audience and I think, who's on their phone? Are you just checking a message because you've got to? Because if it's real estate, maybe a sale's going through. Or are you on your phone because you're not interested? And my job when I'm on stage is to make sure you don't pick your phone up. And if you do, no fault with you, the fault is with me. So I watch the audience and I analyse the audience and I think, what are you laughing at? What are you listening to? What are you making notes on? Brilliant. Then I'll change my behaviour to be better. I'll pick up on that. I'll reference this. I won't talk about this. So pay attention to your audience. You'll be getting feedback all the time. I think you realise you're a good boss when you talk to people like they're humans and equals. And I used to say to my team, my title is executive producer or director of television content, but come the revolution, if they were shooting people, I'd be the first to go and the show would go on. But it won't go on without the runners because there'll be no paper and there'll be no photocopier and no ink and no food and no parking. And you can't get rid of them. But, if I'm doing my job properly, you can get rid of me. So I think feedback from your team is great. If people come back and work with you more than once, that's great. I never really thought of myself as the leader. I just thought of myself as having a different job to everyone else, which was to make it a really nice environment to work in, to try and take the pressure off. When things would go horribly wrong, I'd say to people, you really ought to go and talk to the press. And I say, good try. Who gets paid more? I go, I get paid more, but I think you should. They go, not a chance. It's your job. I go, okay, I'll go and do it. So you've got to do the rough with the smooth. I always wanted to just do the smooth, and I try my best to not do the rough. You go and talk to them. But then you get really good at facing the press and saying, okay, we've really goofed up. We have completely monumentally messed up. And we did it because we're not terribly smart. And I'm sorry about that, but yeah, we did.
Just in pulling your answer apart, I'll go back to what Wizard said. You're a profiler. You profile people when you interview them. You profile audiences before you speak to them. You profile demographic groups.
We all do it.
You do it to a different level. You know that.
I do it because it was my job.
Because it was your job.
It was my job.
Yeah, but there's a curiosity there. That would you, if we pulled
I'm
on a
fascinated.
string,
I'm fascinated.
Somewhere as a kid,
by
there would
people,
have been
Andrew.
something that.
Right. So when you are female or anyone who identifies as a woman, you have to be careful in everything you do in a way that you don't know. You don't know this. Secret women's business. You know that you'll park your car. No, I don't park my car. I park my car somewhere safe. So I won't park on that side of the station because it means I've got to go into the tunnel late at night. I'll park on this side and I'll park under a lamp. Maybe this is security. That kebab shop looks like it's open late. I'll park in front of the kebab shop and I'll have my keys out early and I will get on the train here and I will sit next to those women, and if the carriage empties, then maybe I'll move to the next one because there are people in that one, and I won't live on the first floor, and I won't wear iPods really early or really late, and if I want to go for a walk and it's not sunrise, I won't do it. I'll wait till later. All these things that we do just to stay safe.
So I've just had an aha moment as a bloke. I just go,
You got no idea that we do this.
I never think about that.
Of course not, because you don't have to.
There's a car park.
You park anywhere. Now, you know, as a woman, you don't. And, you know, and you'll get in the car and you look behind you. Does someone get in the car at the same time as me? You know, so all the things you have to think about. We have to read the situation constantly. We read the room constantly because we've got to stay safe. Now, everybody does it. And it goes back to, I think, the old times where you would see a big mammoth and you would think, am I going to eat you or are you going to eat me? Because that's life. So you read the room, you read people constantly. I think women are very good at it because we have to be. And you learn that from a very early age. You learn that the world is not safe for you and you'd like it to be and you'd like it to change, but it isn't. So we are very good at constantly, you know, when I fly somewhere, I try and land in daylight. And if I'm not in daylight, then I get the hotel to send a car and there's someone with my name on it. You know, I'll take Ubers rather than taxis and I'll look at your rating and, you know, all the things that you do that you don't notice you do. I think that has helped, but it was my job. It was also my job to sell shows. You know, I had to walk into a room with you and get you to like me. So I would say, when was the last time we worked together? Celebrity Apprentice, yeah? Is that the year it won the Logie? I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, it was number one, wasn't it? That was a good year, wasn't it? That was a laugh. Anyway, I've got a new show. Now, suddenly you remember, oh, blimey, Freckles, she's not bad at making telly, and we had a laugh doing that one.
We had a number one show. We had fun. You did that in 10 seconds.
Yeah. Do it in every meeting you walk into. I call it warming up the room. How do I get them to like me? And remember that actually I wasn't a nightmare. We had a right laugh. You know, we went through the wars.
I needed to follow you for a day. With permission. Okay.
Like me outside the supermarket.
Yeah, not just pulling up.
Is that Andrew?
Is he profiling?
He's been there for 4 weeks. Could someone make him a cup of tea?
No, I imagine and I've had this with a few people who've wanted me to mentor them, and I'll say, look, come and follow me. It's going to sound weird, but watch what I do when I'm with the sporting team.
Watch how you live.
Watch what I'm doing when I go into a TV segment. Watch what I do when we're in the podcast. Watch when I'm selling.
Because you adapt for every room you walk into.
But I've tried to do it with a strong personal brand, which we're going to get to in a moment. But I reckon if I followed you, you'd do my freaking head in.
I'll definitely do your head in.
You're next level. No, you are. You're next level on this stuff. Because you talk about it so casually and calmly, but I know underneath it all, you've thought about this meticulously. Like you're very.
I'm a strategist. I was a creative strategist for BBC Worldwide, so I'm a strategist. But we all are. It goes back to your kid. Give me a biscuit, bitch. Not going to get you what you want. You know, you walk into a restaurant, you want the table in the corner. You're not going to go, I want the table in the corner, because they go, I bet you do. But if you walk into the restaurant, you say, I am certain the table in the corner is taken, but my partner and I were going through a bit of a tough time, and actually that was our first date, and that's why I've booked this. Now I'd love to go back there to remind my partner why they like me, if they still do, and if there's any chance of resurrecting the tatters of our relationship, I think it would be at that table. Now, it's pretty likely you'll get the table.
Weezer, are you writing this shit down? Honestly, mate, as a young guy in his 30s, married with a young baby, this is, if I had this advice when I was your age, My God, that would have been a superpower. I'm going to be calling you regularly. Maz, Tony and I have had an argument. What do I say to her?
Everyone, my friends do call me and say, this has happened. What should I do? And I go, look, I don't know. This is what I would do. But, see previous. I'm single. Don't take tax advice or love advice from me.
We have a wide audience, so I love to support our guests and our podcast talent. So if anyone's listening or watching to this who would like to be in contact with Maz, give me a yell.
Call now on 0405.
Right. I like deconstructing what people do to perform. So you can see the arc of where I'm trying to go. Number one, you read the room. You get really good at reading the situation.
But you get your sports is that it's minute gestures and moments and confidences and reading the room. And I find sport fascinating. I did an AFL show and I think, how did you were running with a ball and you threw it to your left and someone caught it because they were running a little bit faster and it landed just, how do you do that?
Thousands and thousands of reps and sets, both physical and mental. So imagery and doing
hope
mental
is not
skills.
A strategy.
Yeah.
You have a strategy.
So
I am going to understand how this works.
It happens in real time. So if you're not an athlete or not involved in sport, you watch it and think, oh, wow, that was a freaking miracle.
But you're reading the room. You're doing what I do. Yeah. It's exactly the same. It's just I did it differently.
Oh, look, I do it. I think I do
course.
it more than most, but you're a different level, girlfriend. Click my hands.
But my job was to meet people, cast them, and then watch them. And I have friends who are psychiatrists and psychologists and cops, and we all talk the same way.
But you'd run rings around some of them. I imagine some of your psychiatrists, psychologists, police friends literally look at you like a profile. They would learn from you.
The cops I worked with, we got on really well. They were incredible. We were in India. And we drove from our hotel to the head of police, like the training place in Hyderabad where they train the police. And we were on this little minibus. And it's all crazy. And, all, just laughing our heads off. And one of them said, "You see that guy carrying the pig?" And they'll all say, "Yes." There's no one carrying a pig. And then they'll look back and there's someone carrying a pig. Now, we're all talking. Their peripheral... it wasn't their peripheral vision, but they saw something that was out of context and they noticed it. Now, I would say this to everyone who's listening, do something that is out of context because then you will get attention. If you're doing the same as everyone else, you will not get attention. So the weakest link is a quiz show, but it's the exact opposite of every other quiz show in the marketplace. It's a quiz show where we thought about the people at home, the audience, watching a quiz show and saying, "So Andrew, how long did you work in sports? And yet you didn't know X. You are stupid. You are the weakest link. Goodbye." So there was none of this. Well, I tell you what, Wiz, have you had a lovely day? Yeah, it's been a great day. I know you only won $4, but have you enjoyed yourself? Yes, it's been a joy to have you. No, it was none of that. It's like, you're a bit dumb. You should have known the answer to that. You're the weakest link. Get lost. Get out of here. It was extraordinarily different. In the car, driving to the police headquarters, the police, so highly trained to notice something out of context. They go, "Bloke with a pig." And when I look back, the guy was carrying a pig like it was a fur collar. He was wearing a pig around his neck. And I hadn't noticed it. Now, if he'd been standing in front of me, I would have. They are next level. They are the people who are going to throw the ball to exactly where someone is running and they're going to catch it. When you do things that are out of context, the brain loves it because the job of the brain is to not pay attention. It's the job of your brain. Your brain is trained to not pay attention to anything. It
conserves energy, and that's what we do, repeat behaviour.
Keep you alive. That's the single job of your brain, and that's all it's programmed to do. And it's concentrating so hard on that everything else is nothing until something is out of context and the brain says, "Out of context, pay attention to this. There's a man carrying a pig." What can you do in your business that's out of context? And what it is the element of surprise. What can you do that's a bit surprising? Anything that's surprising Trains are going past here and we're not paying attention to it because there's a train line there. Now, if we heard a gunshot, we'd pay attention to it, unless we were by a firing, a shooting alley, in which case the brain would say, it's fine, it's in context. But if we're in a shooting alley in a train, you'd be like, oh, what's the train? So if you want to get attention, everyone wants attention, and attention is the ability to sell. People can't buy your product if they don't know it exists. People can't watch my TV show if they don't know it exists. So what can you do that is slightly out of context that will get people's brains to say, oh, wow. And the moment you've got, oh, wow, you have their attention. And when you have their attention, they're engaged, you can sell them.
I think that's a really good lens for a whole wide range of our audience. So for athletes,
everyone,
you've got to do something different to get noticed by a coach.
Yeah. The people that we love.
Entrepreneurs. Military.
If I said to you, who is the most famous tennis player of all time? Boom, go.
Federer.
See, I would have said McEnroe because he was the most charismatic. He was the most unusual. He was, you cannot be serious.
The big tantrums, and you watch him now commentating and go, oh, what a lovely guy.
Fuck, you can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious. That ball was on the line.
Can you imagine you have a choice between watching McEnroe and watching, I don't know, Bjorn Borg? You're going to go into McEnroe, aren't you? Going to be more fun, going to be more interesting. Do you want to go for a coffee with Ozzy Osbourne? I mean, God rest his soul.
Did you ever work with Ozzy?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Can you tell us the story, Ozzy, Sharon and the crazy family?
Ozzy, completely on brand, isn't he? Ozzy turns
Black
up.
Sabbath,
What are you expecting?
Biting the head off of bats.
Exactly. You're going to turn up
crazy,
to watch
like, hello,
Ozzy. I can go and see Ed Sheeran. God bless him. Worked with him, loveliest person on earth. Or next door, Ozzy might bite the head off a bat. I'm a vegetarian, but I'd still go and have a look because I think something really out of context will happen. My brain is interested. So I was doing a show in LA. I thought it was the worst show ever made, but it won an award. So what do I know? And it was called LA Pool Party, and we were sitting around because television, as you know, is hurry up and wait. And we were sitting, dangling our legs in the pool, and his manager was there. And they were just both really good fun. You could tell they'd worked together forever. Like they were so comfortable
looked like they
with each other.
Were in love because she just rolled her eyes.
No. So it wasn't Sharon. It was so maybe it wasn't his manager, maybe it was his agent or his tour manager. But it was a guy he'd worked with forever and ever and ever, and they were just really good mates. And we were I don't know how we were chatting, but he said, "Do you remember, Alan, that pool party we were at, X years ago with, I can't remember who it was, ACDC or someone." And he said, "Oh my God, yeah." And he said, "Yeah, there was a line of ants just walking along next to the pool, and I got a straw and I snorted them." I was like, "Oh my God, you didn't?" He went, "Oh yeah, I could feel them inside my nose, just kind of wandering around." I was like, you tick every box for Ozzy Osbourne. I don't want you to turn up and talk to me about being vegan and how long you soak your chickpeas for. Completely on brand. And my friends were saying,
would make him?
Because he's Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
Why would you not? And my friends were saying, what was he like? And I said, he is the greatest advert for not taking drugs. Like you just spend 10 minutes with him and you think, I mean, I've never been into drugs, which is surprising because I was surrounded by drugs in all my careers.
Yeah, because like when you look at the industries you've been in.
Fashion and television. I mean, really, practically compulsory. So yeah, it was really, it was just interesting seeing him, and you think, yeah, you are an ad for not doing it, but also lovely and charming and warm and funny and honest. Very honest. You could say authentic. He didn't pretend to be anything other than who he was. Sharon didn't. They didn't play happy families. They were a mess, and they made us feel better about our lives. Yeah, my life is a mess, thank you. The first time on television, I would say, apart from The Simpsons, where you saw families who were a catastrophe in the most beautiful, lovely way that we all are. And that's why we liked them, because they were different. The brain likes stuff that is different. And it went from 0 to, I think it still remains the biggest show MTV ever had. Certainly, I would say one of the biggest reality shows ever, at home with The Simpsons.
Go talk to her, she's sad. Go give her a hug.
She'll be all right.
Kelly? Come on in. Never fucking out of me!
just to keep rolling on, got to give me another artist, TV, celebrity, actor, someone famous you've worked with who was totally different and quirky that surprised you?
Trying to think who I've really liked. Arnold Schwarzenegger was interesting. And I've met him a couple of times. One was with Paula Yates, and you might know Paula Yates. She was married to Bob Geldof. And was with Michael Hutchence. And I loved Paula. She's super clever, really funny, very honest, had been around famous people all her life, so she didn't find them exciting. She just found them, ordinary. And we were interviewing Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we had 7 minutes with him, and the gap in the show was 7 minutes long. So it had to, we had a gap in the show of 7 minutes. We had to record 7 minutes worth of content, not 4 minutes, could have 3 minutes spare, so 7 minutes. And his agent came in, and she said, you ready to go? And I said, yeah, we're ready to go. Like, he'll walk in, we're ready with the mic, he'll sit down, we're going to start within 5 seconds. We're ready to go, we are all over it. And I said to Paula, do you know Arnold? And she said, yeah, we're mates. I said, be nice. Because sometimes these very famous people, she'd say, look, I've got 7 minutes, I've got to go and pick the kids up. So if you could be interesting in 7 minutes, that'd be great. I said, you can't say that to people, but it's rude. She'd go, for heaven's sake. She just didn't care. So anyway, Arnold Schwarzenegger walks in and says, I'm Maz, I'm the producer. Lovely to meet you, Maz. This is, Wiz. This is Andrew. Lovely to meet you, lovely to meet you. And I said, I think you know Paula. And Paula said, yes, I know this old C word. And he looks at her, I look at him, the agent looks at me, we're all looking at each other, like, what happens now? And I'm thinking, okay, I could become a baker. Maybe I'll just marry someone and settle down and, give up this television business because I won't have a job in 3 minutes. And we're all looking at each other, and it is like the world has just stood still. And he is probably one of the most famous people on earth at this moment. Like, he is so famous. And he starts to laugh from the actual core of his body. He is laughing so hard. And he said, there is no one on earth, Paula, apart from you, who would call me the C word at this point in my career. He said, I'm one of the most famous people on earth. And she said, I know, but and he said, I know what you're going to say. And the agent's looking at me, and I'm looking at watching, saying, if you could just sit down there, that'd be marvellous, and we'll start the interview. He said, no, I've got to explain. So look, really, it's fine. I don't need to know. So he said, no, let me explain. So I'm there like Judge Judy, as he's telling me the story of why, and what happened. And it was the story, Paula had been in his house, and he was talking to Warren Beatty, and they were all chatting to each other. And she had Peaches on her hip, and Peaches pulled her top open and started to breastfeed in front of them. And they were a bit like, oh, we've just seen Paula's boob and this must be uncomfortable for her, so we'll walk away and give her some space. So he's telling me this, and I'm like, right, yes, thank you so much, lovely. Could you sit down? And then Paula said, no, it wasn't like that at all. So then she pitches me, and she says, I'm there, and it's so natural, and, it's a baby, and, just stormed off like I'd really offended them. So we managed to, settle down. And he did the interview, and he spoke for about 20 minutes, and he was charming and lovely. And I thought at that time, and I really paid attention to it, because I like to pay attention when people behave, in a smart way. And I thought he could have walked out, and who would blame him? She's just called him the C word. Yeah, and he's given us his time. He doesn't have to. There are a million people who want to interview him, and he's chosen us. And we're not the biggest show in town, but, we're an impactful show. We're not the biggest. We're not Graham Norton. And he did our show. And I thought leadership is this. It trickles down from you, that however you are, everyone will copy you. Like your parents. I remember the first time I ever saw my mother show fear, we were in a lift, and the lift stopped. And she was afraid. I'd never seen my mother afraid. She didn't like small spaces. I didn't know. I was really young, and I thought, okay, I should be afraid of lifts. And that was a thing. I was afraid of lifts for a really long time, until I suddenly thought, what am I afraid of? This is nonsense. It's silly. But we learn from the people who are influential. He was the most important person in that room at that point. And he behaved in a certain way. And the moment he started laughing, we all started laughing. And suddenly it was fine. But he could have stormed out. And you have a choice, because everything is going to happen to you, whatever. It's going to rain today, and you're not going to be able to find a park. and maybe your coffee will be cold. Now, you can either laugh your way through it or cry your way through it, because the same stuff is going to happen. If you're laughing, it will still rain and you won't be able to find a park and your coffee will be cold. If you're sobbing, it's still going to rain, you won't be able to find a park and your coffee will be cold. And it really changed the way I thought about leadership and business and life. And I thought, I do have a choice. I can laugh about stuff or I can get really angry, and I'm just going to laugh because I'd rather have a laugh. And it was a really simple moment. And I thought, God, there's a lot to learn from this. And I talk about it when I talk about leadership with companies. And I say, it does trickle down from you. People will copy what you do. And not what you say, but what you do. So do the right thing if you can. And you're not always going to do the right thing, but give it a crack.
I like listening back to interviews, because when you're in an interview, you know this, when you're talking to someone, you've got parallel port, one in the interview and then one thinking about, what have we just spoken about? Any loops? Do I have to open some, close some? Where am I going next? I reckon I'm going to listen back to this and go, yes, very reflective. You've got this beautiful blend between being present and you've got a busy brain. Yeah, like you think about lots of different things at lots of different times. But you've worked out a sequence or a pattern in all this.
I'd say I like to think I think a lot. My friends would disagree. Yeah, I sound like such an idiot. I find life really interesting. I find people fascinating. And I really do. I look at people all the time. I'll sit in the train and stare at people. I should probably stop doing that. But I'm very interested in people's motivation and what they're feeling and thinking and how they're interacting and how they move. And I'll be sitting with a friend and I'll say, tell me about that person. And they can tell you 1,000 things looking at them for 3 seconds. And I find that fascinating. And you're very rarely ever wrong. And my friend Fee, same Fee, was at a conference.
We all need a Fee.
We all need Fee in our lives. She's mine. You can't have her. She was at a conference or a workshop, and you had to look around the room and write down 3 words that would describe someone you don't know. And then at the end of the day, they said, what did you say about Andrew? And then, Andrew, is that right or wrong? And she said 99.9 were correct. From looking at someone for seconds, someone you'd never met in your life, and you just look at them, you write down 3 words, and most of the time we're right. It's fascinating, I think.
It's tapping into that intuition, isn't it? Or tapping into that experience we have, collective experience. Maz, thank you. Today has been a real masterclass in human behaviour. You've covered how to read a room, how to be read, and how to stop leaving either one of those to chance. That ABCDEF framework alone is something I know our audience will be able to refer to over and over again. I think you and I could genuinely talk for hours, and I'd love to. So a wholehearted thank you for today.